we would do a historical look, which we could see whether that number is increasing or decreasing. But there has been some pretty significant development within the district in the town of Janesville. The question is whether or not we've gotten the kids from those houses yet. Those are kids that are more likely to do open enrollment because they went to Janesville schools, they move into our district, they keep going to Janesville schools. So I don't believe they show up on this count, but we'll find that out too. Magnolia, 124 students. There's not a lot of long-range planning for additional residential growth in Magnolia. The general idea is that will stay rural. I think we would all be surprised if they started putting in major subdivisions in Magnolia. Union, outside of the city of Evansville, would be the second most populous, 488 students. Union does have additional land slated and with phases for residential growth, but they're moving pretty cautiously with that. Would you say that's a fair representation?
I would say they're very cautious.
We didn't give you maps of the others. They're relatively small amounts. We do have them if you want them. But we're not getting a lot of kids from those. I'm actually surprised how many we've got from Center. Maybe we should give you that map so you can see what it is.
Kendall or Dan, do you have anything you want to add as far as smart growth?
Talk about stormwater, I was going to say that the territorial site might be better for stormwater in Evansville because in the Yahara watershed and not in the Sugar River watershed.
Dan, do you have anything you want to add regarding?
No.
Okay. All right, so as we're going through this, we kept moving back and forth between land and infrastructure and student enrollments from different townships. Would it be helpful for you as a group to see what those land options are? And I don't know how we put this together yet, but we'll figure it out. To see maybe a chart, like a table, if you could see the land options that Heidi mentioned when she was talking about the dots on the map, and then maybe some of the infrastructure that either is available or would be needed. Would that be useful?
I wonder if it might, and I don't know if this gets at what you're getting at, Judy, but if you take a look at the town of Union map and look at the land that is close to, but not necessarily within the city limits yet. It's pretty easy to see who the property owners are that we might be trying to negotiate with. So if you're taking a look at Porter Road, see that Lee Ringhand has that land south. The land north is already within the city limits. So we have to go to the city to find out who owns those parcels. And if you look south of Old 92, those property owners are listed there.
But I think as you were having this conversation, there were some comments about pros and cons, about transportation patterns, or ability of students to walk to school. At some point in this, would it be useful to see the advantages of some parcels over others, or is that something that you would like to develop yourself?
Well, and I'm wondering again, based on what I sense is a consensus about focusing on buying land, that's a level of detail we may not need to get to as a committee. I might be wrong, but I'm not real sure that we want to spend time on that at this point in time, because we have to narrow down the options of what the land is.
Okay, so you can just buy the land and the intent that it's not the right side and resell.
If you look at these sites, I don't limit yourself to a particular landowner at a particular site. It looks to me like you're going to be doing some busing. And you may very well be able to buy 2 the next adjoining land, considerably less money. The other thing is, I don't think you should limit yourself to 20 acres. I don't think you should have that in your mind as you go through this process, because you may have situations where you can buy 30 or 40 acres for the same price or less.
But I do
It
think
would be-
we would want, I think we need a piece that's at least 20.
Yeah, there's got to be a minimum, yeah, absolutely, to accommodate your needs, but sometimes, you know, an individual may have a 30-acre parcel that's, or 40 acres that's kind of off, and he says, well, I want to sell the whole thing.
And I recall through the smart growth process, we had some pretty far-ranging conversations. We were looking at 14 and, it starts with a B in, Bullard, taking that whole piece of land, saying, well, we'll just put a whole second campus out there, because eventually the city's going to get it.
That's it, if you're looking kind of long range at this, getting the land and to build, it's very possible that by the time you build, the city will be passed. I don't know. I know there's an intergovernmental relations committee between the township and the city and all that. I don't know where that's at, but
If we were to take it from that aspect of just the parcel, do we need to think and have a conversation about infrastructure, or is that a conversation we can have at a later date?
One time the only input that I would like to have on that, I think that it wasn't done well in high school, and it needs to be improved in this time.
So it needs to be a factor at some point in the process.
It needs to be. We can't just hope that the city grows and incorporates the land that the school is on in time for the first flush. So, doesn't happen in the case of high school.
Okay, so infrastructure needs to be a piece of this at some point. Does it need to be right now?
I would feel more comfortable if we had infrastructure information, or at least identify the pieces of infrastructure that we think are the most critical as we're considering pieces of infrastructure. So, cost of waste disposal is probably a significant factor. And that gets into whether or not, is there accessibility to a city sewer system? Are there or will there be emerging technologies that reduce the need to rely on those systems? Maybe we'll have our own methane plant, for example. So that general cost of waste disposal, you know, I think is an important one.
What about transportation? I mean, and I don't have in my head the rule about how far you can make kids walk,
2 miles.
2 miles. Do you have to have sidewalks within that 2-mile radius?
You don't have to have sidewalks, but you should be able to define whether or not it's hazardous. Because if someone would apply for the fact that it's hazardous, you would need to provide transportation. So one of the things that makes it less hazardous is sidewalks. But within the city of Evansville, you could go 3 blocks and all of a sudden there is no sidewalk. So it's,
An example of that is work on the middle school, brand new school, built a couple years ago, going up on Highway MM, there's no sidewalks on either side of the golf course. The kids walk along the gravel part of the Highway MM. There are no sidewalks at all. It's a good mile distance, if not 2, where the kids are going, they like to travel that, and they're on the edges of the gravel.
Other key elements of infrastructure that at some point we need to have more information about.
I don't think this is infrastructure per se. One thing, and we got to a little of this with this information, is chart about where the students are. But for example, it'd be interesting to know how many of the Center Township students are towards the east end of that township, because they might very well be grouped in the development out by Highway H, whatever that is. And, I mean, I'd be curious to know how many of those students in those two townships are in that development. Because if there's a good percentage of that 240 out there, maybe it makes sense to have an elementary school out there.
I can tell you, my daughter has quite a few friends that live in that subdivision out there. And every time they ask if they can go over to one of their houses, I keep on saying, can you not have any friends closer? And why are you going all the way out to Highway H? You know, that's where all your friends are. Yeah, there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
We are waiting for the town of Janesville smart growth plan. Center is doing, I think, a different process for it. That is a big question. Throw that idea out there too. There's the Bullard Road idea, but there's also the Grand Medina H area. It's done as a consortium. It is done as a budget.
Okay, in order to keep moving through this, because there's a couple of items that we really need to cover, I want to make sure we get to everything, though. On the land options, one of the questions we had on the agenda is what factors need to be considered in terms of cost? Is there any way we need to deal with that tonight, or is there a way to get that information? And maybe that's an item that we can move to the next meeting.
Well, it would be very helpful to get some recommendations from the experts that are here in terms of coming up with a cost of land, because that's really critical for the whole process.
This ties together with infrastructure. And the comment that I think you made, Heidi, about the property out on the west side of town and the drainage, et cetera. That's certainly going to impact the cost of land. I mean, road land is less expensive than higher ground, I think, generally speaking. So how does that factor in? How do you get a cost of infrastructure versus the cost of land? I have no idea.
You can search the recent land sale, location, parcel size, whatever, it's all public, all recorded, so it's all available, and there are people that can give you the cost of so many foot, per foot of road, driveway, sewer, water, whatever, so it wouldn't be hard to put that together.
Of the 102-acre parcel that we originally had that was sold several years ago, and about a third of that was too low to build on, was sold for over $10,000.
How many years ago was it?
About 3 years.
John, I think what I'm hearing though is there's people out there that can help us.
And that's not high.
Get someone to refer us to them.
No.
Right, that's the bill to do.
10,000, I think.
Any bills to or the court calls, land surveyors.
Well, I think this all depends on the land, what everybody projects they're gonna sell their land for. Because there was lots of land available for 10,000 acres, but not much of it was sold. Because the housing demand has dropped off and things like that. But, so it depends on where the land is and what farmland is. There was a piece of farmland that sold at auction, owned by Albany, for just about 5,000 acres.
I mean, I've been checking
Well over 20 years.
land prices myself for the last couple of years, and 5,000 is a damn good price for land in this area. Yeah, let me know what it is again.
So what we know is there's ways to find out that information, we just need to tap into the resources in this, point us to where those are. Okay?
Is that something you can do for us, John, is to do a query on parcels of 15 acres or more that have sold within the last 3 years within 5 miles of Evansville?
He's agreed.
It would take some work to go back 5 years, I don't know
Yeah,
what the
whatever.
value of that is. And
That can be worked out. And
I
John,
think one thing
where's-
that you get here from Raleigh's comment, whatever, is, you know, we're in a down economy, but agriculture is really not part of that. Which means the land values are up considerably because the grain prices are up considerably. As so,
How about if we move on to the item about the involvement of the township with the city? And let's just maybe take 5 minutes, so that we then have time to finish up the rest of the items on the agenda. Do we need to talk about this further at another meeting? This is just the first touch on this. Heidi, you got a comment?
In my mind, it would be helpful to generate a list of information we need for the next meeting.
Okay.
And I think part of that is to try to accurately identify, as Melissa alluded to, the issues that were part of the conflict when the high school was built, to make sure that we take them into account this time, but also have an accurate, as best as we can, reconstruction of what those issues actually were. You know, the 25-cent version I got as a newcomer was a concern about who was going to pay for that lift station. And that was really the main conflict, not whether or not the school needed it or not. But that may not be an accurate representation of that issue. I might have misinterpreted it. So it's just a matter of who's going to pay for it. That's not saying that the city isn't receptive to the school. It's the city being concerned about having to absorb all of the costs for something that really is a district-wide issue.
So is there an item there that you want as info for the next meeting? Or is that a conversation we need to anticipate having with the city?
There's people here who can answer that question better than I, in terms of who are connected with the city. You know, is the city receptive, neutral, or negative to additional schools?
I don't understand the question. When you're facing the other direction with the cooler over here, I couldn't hear most of it, so.
Oh, sorry.
Receptive, neutral, or negative to school,
To building additional schools within the city limit.
within the city? I would assume that it would be receptive. The smart growth map, the future land use map, the two that were shown on it were both indicated within the city or within the growing city.
As we were working through the smart growth issue, and there was a lot of building going on in the community, there was certainly tension between the school district and the city with concerns about how fast property taxes were escalating. And there would be a concern, perhaps on the part of the city, that if we purchase land, that we're going to be right on the heels of that to build a school, which would have a significant impact on property taxes. So I think we need to have a substantive conversation with representation from the city as to how much of an issue or how strong of a fear that is. Because if people are driven by that fear, that we're going to come back after maybe a small referendum for purchasing land with a $40 million referendum to build a school, the land referendum might fail. So I do think we need to have some clarification from the city about that. But I've had conversations around that issue with several people in this room who I think can probably give us a little bit better idea if that's something to be concerned about and spend some time resolving, or if it's not an issue if we're just looking at purchasing land.
Heidi, I missed something. Who does pay the infrastructure cost?
Well, if you're just buying land,
No, I know, but once
Yeah.
the development happens, is it the city's responsibility or the school district?
it would be however any typical development would be done. So I think it typically would be the builder, in this case the school district, that would incur most of those costs. It would be the responsibility of the city thereafter to maintain some of that infrastructure.
Are those costs reflected in the costs we have for the building options?
I don't know, that would be a question to find an answer to.
Melissa, maybe you know this. When the high school was built, and maybe somebody else knows, was there a lift station added?
That's what that big box is, kind of between the athletic field and the back way into the auditorium. And if it's not working, there's a light that flashes on it.
Originally, it was a septic system, because it was out of the city limits.
When it opened, or
When the high school
originally
opened, immediately found out that they could not handle
There was never a
500.
septic system. There was never a septic system back then.
Or something that didn't work, and I had to redo it.
The only place there was a septic was at the football field.
The high school was built contingent on that lift station being put in.
And
Who's going to pay for it was the discussion.
and who ended up paying for it?
As I recall, looking through some documents on that, and maybe this will trigger memories, the lift station was paid for by the district, and it was sized basically for the district needs. I believe there was a hope that it would be sized for a larger development area crossing Fifth Street, and that didn't happen. Am I recalling that, what I, yeah.
And in ballpark, what does a lift station cost? I mean, is this a huge cost, or?
I don't know.
Like a question or
Well, and that's another factor, depends on what capacity of the sewer system. How much one thing, they're talking about having to expand that. So how many more things can be put in, how many more places can be dumped into that system?
so that,
So what other information do you want for this?
Is the cost of the infrastructure included in the costing packages we have?
Cost of infrastructure included in what, I'm sorry?
The cost of the packages,
Okay,
or the options?
okay. Cost of options. What else?
How close to capacity is the city sewer system now?
How close to capacity? Okay.
The system itself is not going to be an issue here. Depending on your location, you might have an issue with a specific main or interceptor, but the capacity for the system currently is not a problem, and a new facility coming on in the next year, you really won't have a problem.
That one's
Where would it be an issue then? Do you know? I mean, with any of the properties that Heidi highlighted, for example,
It'd be easy to look into. Mhm.
okay. Other information you want?
Well, aren't we gonna try to find out some land values?
The land
Yeah.
value?
This is, disregarding the land value.
Would there be any way to rank, even from Heidi's perspective or whatever, the land options as to which ones are most conducive to what we're trying to accomplish?
And then I kind of want to know, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? What is that goal? That part is not clear to me. So I can add that to my vision when we discuss these issues.
Judy, the question that came up earlier is the definition of repurposing this building.
Right.
Oh, thank you. I've got a few identified on that green sheet. I have to put it over. Thanks, Dan. There are a couple of different splits. Economic and something about class size. I'll get that up in the splits. We want to do items for the agenda, this doesn't talk about committees and structure and organization. And we have literally 11 minutes.
I
One of
think-
my goals is this, is we start on time, we end on time.
My recommendation would be that we'll know when we're ready to talk about subcommittees. I think we keep it on the agenda. It's clear we're not ready to talk about it yet, so don't worry about spending more
Good.
time on it.
Then we can spend our time on items for the next agenda. Okay, next agenda, what would you like to cover?
Unplugging the coolers?
I'm sorry. Unplugging the cooler, that would be really.
Quieter meeting spot, that we could do that. We could meet up in the library too, I think.
It's very loud.
It is difficult to hear people across the room, so.
Yeah. Let's move up to the library.
It's just like church.
Okay, so you want to move to a different location? Okay, we'll figure that out. All right, items for the agenda.
Narrow down land costs.
Okay. What else?
Develop criteria to assess potential land parcels. If you would like, I can take a stab at putting something like that together, emailing it to everyone and getting some feedback so we can come with something that might be a draft at least.
Okay. Heidi will draft and circulate. Okay? So we'll have at least a draft to start with. Okay.
We'd like to take a stab at it.
I'm sorry.
Nobody knows what
The
the
goal.
goal is.
Well, we spent a fair bit, we should revisit that. We did spend quite a bit of time at the last meeting.
Let's revisit and refine, okay? Because we talked about the charge last time, which was to explore all these options and eventually make a recommendation to the board. But now that recommendation doesn't mean it has to be one of those options. There was just.
Yeah, we talked specifically that the option might simply be to purchase land. The option might be to say, we're not ready to talk about this, revisit, form another committee in a year.
I mean, there's nothing that's been preassumed yet.
I always like to have the goals always restated, because it's amazing how many times you forget what the actual
Yeah.
original goal was.
Right. Well, I mean, you've covered a lot of ground in just 2 meetings, so it's good to go back and clarify.